Hello, this is National Chess Master All Rats, continuing my video series at chess.com of the correspondence team match between my video lessons group and CARPE DIEM. This was played on board 15, one of the higher boards, low 2100 rating versus mid 2000 rating. Our man is nhaygoodjr, and let's have a look at this game. And this is a let's talk about this when you have these high ratings. These are the kind of players that aren't going to make mistakes. Now, I really can't say for sure, but because we get 46 moves in, obviously they are moving pretty quickly, both sides. So, are they taking 30 minutes on a move, or are they taking just seconds? I can't answer. I don't know. I'm not going to check their profiles and see what their average move time is. I'm not going to look at their game load and see if they're playing 200 games. I mean, there's people play 200 games and they just answer them the newest first, and their average day per move may be 3 days, but their average time on a move could be seconds. We don't know. So the quality of play is up, but there's still going to be blunders because our man is going to win both games, and we'll try to get to the bottom of this and find out why one side loses and how one side could actually win once they get an advantage. So the game is just following a normal path. I've just been kind of going on as like a Catalan system. Black is willing to accept an isolated queen pawn, and now he does. But Black has free development for it. The next, what White wants to do is blockade. The 3 steps: restrain. You want to keep it from pushing. Restrain, blockade, get it. That means get a knight there, and then destroy. You do that later. You can do that in the ending. That's the 3 steps to win the pawn. And now Black secures his e6 square, and both sides are developing. But now, let's see. Should White consider a move like knight b5? Well, it might be that Black can push that pawn. It might be that White can't restrain it. Maybe could White play e3? Well, that softens up the square f3 because the g pawn is moved. Maybe Black can get an annoying pin. These are considerations. But instead, White opts to trade off the isolated pawn for one of his own. And this leads to actually a new isolated pawn, as we'll see. So the game maintains relative equality. Neither side has an advantage. It's the kind of position, if one took their time on this, one could probably find a way to play this a little better. Like, I never liked this bishop going to e6 type theme, although he was doing it to anchor in this d5 pawn. But Black should be okay. He should be quite happy to go into this line, even though he's going to end up with an isolated e pawn in a minute, because he does get a queenside pawn majority for however long it lasts. Okay, gains a tempo. Now the queens come off the board, and now this bishop is under attack, so it goes and attacks rook. Now look at the active bishops that Black has. So White finds it necessary to eliminate one of those bishops, and this is now an isolated pawn, but it's not an easy pawn for White to assault. Yeah, he can get a bishop on it, and theoretically he could get a knight on it, but it's not going to be all that easy to get at, as we'll see. White elects to bring his rook up, and Black decides to keep the knight out. Maybe that was a good idea, since Black is taking time to play this move. Now White activates his other rook. So White's got a couple of good active rooks, but I think the game is relatively even. Black hunkers down, guards the pawn, and here's where White commits a little bit of an error, rook b3. Here he steps into a fork, and he must give up the exchange, or the quality as it's known in Europe, and he gets a pawn back. So now from pawn count chess, White's up a pawn. Black is up a pawn. He has a rook versus a bishop and a pawn. So how do you win a position like this? Well, there's several ways. Let me try to explain so you understand. If you reach a position like this in a correspondence game, you're allowed to consult endgame books. Now, the series I always recommend, it's expensive, but it's exhaustive. I call it the Averbach series. There's an 8-volume set written by, I think, Soviet Grandmaster Yuri Averbach co-wrote all but one of them, and the 8 volumes cover just about every combination of piece versus piece endings, and in some case, piece versus pawns endings. We have queen endings, pawn endings, rook endings, queen versus rook or minor piece endings, rook versus minor piece endings, bishop endings, bishop versus knight endings, and knight endings. That should total 8. And what the Russians tried to do back in the 60s, they tried to create an exhaustive set of works that essentially covered every conceivable type of endgame position that could arise. In other words, equal pawns, positional advantage, pass pawn, extra pawn, pretty much every category. And they used actual game examples, composed problems, studies, everything. And it's really an excellent series. It's expensive. Pergamon reprinted it in the 80s, and they actually combined volumes. I don't know if any of these are still in print. You can find it on Amazon, the Averbach series. Some of them are more expensive. I think the Pawn Endings itself runs around $60. Definitely not cheap. But objectively, what you would do is you would look at the rook versus minor piece endings, and you would try to figure out how does black win this position. And so your objective would be trade off the knights and trade off the rooks and get to a rook versus bishop ending, then figure out how to win it. And a similar position is in the book. And they start with the simplest of positions, and then they start adding pawns to it. And you could find out a method. And this is going to teach you, this method, as I explained in my video lessons course, will teach you how to learn an endgame. You learn an ending as you play it through correspondence chess. You don't have to stop and study this ending and never play it. You learn it as you play it. Now, it's not necessarily so easy to trade all the pieces off. In the meantime, you have certain other advantages. Black has extra material. Black could try to win a pawn. Okay, these two pawns are, at least for now, a little weak. This pawn is weak. There's a bishop bearing down on it at some point. The rook's already pressuring it. But you try to increase your activity of your pieces of the rooks and get and go after and make a target and try to make a pass pawn on the board. So for the moment, black just stops and plays b6. This offers a rook trade, secures the pawn. It's safe now, and white declines, which is probably a smart choice. Doesn't want to trade down into a theoretically lost ending, right? Okay, then black gives a check, and now white decides to go after that weak e pawn. He covers it, and now black removes it from the target to free the rook on d6. And here comes a check. The king comes up. And now there's a pin on this knight on c4. And here comes a critical mistake. Both sides blunder here. And again, I'm going to blame this on moving too fast because, they're both rated over 2,000. They're capable players, and they'd be so much stronger players if they take their time. Black commits an error, rook c2. I mean, it makes sense. It looks good. If white set this trap, then kudos for him because this is an easy move to want to play. You're forking two pawns. But what happens is white misses a good shot here. You might want to pause the video and try to solve the tactic. Okay, you've resumed. I hope you found rook takes c4. See, rook takes c4, and black is quite embarrassed. Okay, if you take the rook, here comes this check. Whoops. And suddenly, white can play this for a win. Okay? White's got two minor pieces for the rook and a couple extra pawns. So what does poor black do on rook takes c4? Well, he can't really go into that line. He can try this line. He can take this pawn with check. Move the king. Got to get out of check. Okay, let's see. No, you can't move the king. You can drop the knight. You have to bring the bishop back. And I guess you can collect another pawn. But once again, white has 2 pieces for the rook and can contemplate playing this for a win. Just has to restrain this b pawn, and white's going to win this game. Okay, so that quick from going from a theoretical win to a theoretical loss, just over a simple blunder, and black missed it, and then white in turn misses it. White plays bishop g2, and now the game just progresses downward for white. There white's won one of the pawns he wants. Black gets one back. Now look at all the loose pieces white has. His rook is under attack. His knight is under attack. Some exchanges have to happen. So he chases off the rook, or exchanges off the rook, and now black is achieving his goal. He's gotten rid of the rooks. Now the next objective is to trade one of the minor pieces and win that ending. Okay, so let's see how it finishes. And there he got rid of the bishop. Now this rook will really outduel this knight in an open board like this. Even if white had an extra pawn, he's probably lost. Pawn on e3. I had a correspondence game against a guy that went on to get an international master correspondence title, where I had a rook against a knight and 2 pawns, and my rook just killed him because it just runs amok. That pawn on a2 is very, very weak. See, there it is. It's going to fall, and suddenly that b pawn becomes worth a lot of power. I mean, it's just getting ready to run, and not only that, black has an active rook, an active king, and this move b4 takes away white's little threat of knight c3 check, and now it's just a matter of trapping the knight, forcing the knight back to e3 away from the pawn, and here he comes, and now just a matter of escorting that pawn in. It doesn't matter if white regains the exchange. There's no stopping this pawn. So let's move on a couple of more moves. One more spite check, and pawn's just going to go, and they played this far, and white resigned. He's going to lose. So pretty much well played by both sides, except there's that double blunder back on move 29, where black blundered and white didn't take advantage of it. But again, the lesson is, you can learn the endings, and if you look them up. Okay, so let's bring up the other game. It's always fun to see where it's going to start the game. I'm loading the PGN. It should start it on move 1, but hey, it did. Sometimes it picks like move 20. You never know what it's going to do. Okay, so this follows opening theory, and it's a dead even position. The Caro-Kann, basically, if you play it correctly, you can't get a disadvantage. You can't get an advantage with it. You're just going to have to sit there and play a long game. So this is all straight out of the book. It probably leaves books somewhere in here. And usually white gets an e5 square for his knight. And now black is threatening to win a piece because there's a pin. There'll be a discovery on the queen, so white has to deal with that. He chooses to trade off a piece. And I never like putting this pawn on h5 myself. It can sometimes become a target. And we'll see about that here in a little bit. Now white plays to menace the white queen side. This is a very interesting move. And white's offering a pawn, and black goes ahead and takes it. And now white shows what he has in mind. He has a little trick up his sleeve. And at this point, unfortunately, black basically tosses the game away. He needed to sit and analyze this position. Maybe he did, but he didn't analyze it deep enough, because the move he played and the continuation is just, it ends up being a poor choice. What he should do is attack the queen. Okay, now you get a pawn for it, and let's see. The point being, if you take here, then you take here, and I won't really go into all the lines, but this move will hold on for black. I think if white tries something like this, for instance, now this black's a pawn up, but he can't keep it. This is a threat. This pawn is under threat, and you know the game essentially is going to stay about even. Although you could argue that if, when this is taken, maybe this rook can swing over here, but then white could always liquidate that rook at some point too. So you see, there's a lot of variations, but here black for the moment is a pawn ahead. White has to regain it, and black would have a satisfactory game if he sits and defends it. Instead, black makes a poor choice and gives up his queen, and this just quickly leads to a losing game. What black has is only has a rook and a bishop for the queen. That's not enough. And immediately the white queen becomes very active. Now the black pawns on the queen side are menaced. I mean, black should have seen this. When he played queen takes, he should have seen this possibility. But unfortunately, now there goes a pawn, and the remaining queen side pawns are weak. And after this move, white comes up and gets his king off the open file, and he's setting up a little threat, and black misses it. Black goes and grabs this pawn, but now unfortunately knight d7 is a fork, and black's going to lose some more material. The best he can do is put his bishop maybe on d6, and then after knight takes rook, it's a queen versus a bishop and knight. Plus, I think the c and the a pawn are both going to fall, and all it takes is one to fall, and white has an overwhelming pawn majority that will just run up the board very quickly. So, moving too fast hurt black in waldoj. He didn't have to go into this line and give up his queen. He could have maintained some semblance of balance. Now we don't know what would have happened, but he wouldn't have had a quick loss like this. And definitely had he found rook takes c4 in the other game, then he may very well have won that. So as it stands, our man wins 2 games, and I guess stuff like this, games like this, illustrates why I insist that if you'll take your time in correspondence chess and plan your moves and analyze, you'll win games, and your rating will go up, and then you get to play these 2,000 players, and they're good, but you can see they make blunders too. Okay, and you're going even if they beat you, you're going to learn a lot by playing them. That's why you want to take your time and raise your rating. You can do it because the majority of people at chess.com do not understand how to play correspondence chess. And being a member of my video lessons group, I'm teaching you how to do it. Okay. Anyway, thanks so much for your time. Gotta keep working here and getting caught up little by little. And I thank you so much.